Everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at some of the proposed changes for preseason 2022. So I guess maybe that's what they're calling it now instead of season 12. It starts to make sense, I guess, as it gets further and further away. You get to season 30 or something. It might get a little confusing. So I guess now they're going to call it preseason and just by the name. But anyways, let's go ahead and get in here. So they're changing up a couple of the Drakes. They're adding in the Chemtech Drake, which is 5% increase, up to 5% if you're low on health. It's okay. The Soul... Okay, so that's like the zombie thing. Everyone's tripping out that the zombie thing's going to be really OP. We'll see how it works. I mean, you got to remember that getting the Soul is extremely rare in a lot of games, or maybe not extremely, but it's pretty rare. I don't have exact stats, but I'd say it's only like maybe 1 out of 4 games, something like that, someone actually gets the Soul, and that now you're going to have 6 different dragons. So that would be, 1 out of 24 games or something like that. So it's going to be, 4% of your games or something. This is actually going to be relevant. And if you think that you're going to have it half the time and the enemy's going to have it half the time, you're looking at 2% actually facing this on the enemy team. So yeah, even if it is on the strong side, which I'm not entirely convinced that it is, it shouldn't significantly stop you from climbing. It's just, something that'll be harder to deal with when it does happen. Okay, then it camouflages people. Now, this will come up more often. This will be in one of 6 games. You'll have this camouflage, which is going to favor assassin, type of champions. It's going to be much harder to get vision of an area. You're probably going to have to ward inside the camouflage. Presumably, wards are going to see it when they're in there. That's going to be really lame if you have to have control wards to see the zone, if normal green wards don't work anymore. Now, if you ward camps, if someone attacks the camps, that probably pulls them out of camouflage, but we'll see. So it's interesting. I don't think it's going to be a massive deal. Same thing with Hextech Drake. So they basically get like just some extra damage, some extra chain lightning, similar to like probably Fire Drake, where it's just, extra damage if you get it. And the train turns into these like hex gates, where basically, I don't know how they're going to be paired, but presumably if you step on one gate around blue buff, then it might take you to the enemy's blue buff, or red buff, it takes you to the enemy's red buff, something like that. So this is going to be good at like stopping split pushing or bullying people or just getting positional advantages. So for like skirmishing comps, it's probably going to be pretty good. Okay. Objective bounties. I kind of like this idea just to give people more ways to get back into the game. This is indirectly going to put more gold into the game overall. So this should help out supports by allowing them to maybe get another item in a game, because usually they're the most gold starved, so they would benefit on a percentage basis the most from something like this. Because this is split amongst your entire team. So even if you have a Tryndamere splitting in a side lane who gets one of these bounties, by taking down an inner turret, everyone on your team gets a share of that. It's not just the Tryndamere. So, I think this is helpful. It's going to extend game timers quite a bit, because it's going to be harder just to blow people out, just to beat them down with your purse once you get too far ahead. But that's probably a good thing. It's a little counterintuitive, because I think that they really want games to be in kind of that 25 to 35 minute sweet spot. They don't want them much longer than that. And I could see this going 30 to 40, or maybe even, probably not 35 to 45, but this might bring the average game time up maybe 5 minutes from like whatever it is now, 30 to 32 minutes to, something closer to 37 minutes. Because it's going to allow losing teams to stick around a little bit longer, to be harder just to steamroll. So it will encourage you to try to close out games using macro decisions and not just Rambo your way in there, ARAM middle style. So overall, I think that's probably pretty good for the game. Okay, so look at some items. Now keep in mind we don't have costs here yet on this post. I'm just going to assume that they cost a similar amount to similar items. So this one, for example, is a mythic And so I'm assuming that it's going to cost 3,200 like every other mythic. So if the cost is very different on some of these items, it could change my opinion on them. But I'm going to assume they cost about the same amount as their counterparts. So this one is 70 ability power, 250 health, 600 mana. Okay, so that's pretty decent base stats. 20 ability haste, okay. You're safeguarded, so whenever you get attacked, it reduces incoming damage by 50%, and it persists for 1.5 seconds. So this is going to be good for against champions who don't have a way to knock this off. So it's very similar to like a bubble, right? So against something like maybe a Fizz or a an Annie, maybe something like a Diana if you can dodge her Qs, just stuff that is not going to be able to poke this off of you, then it is going to give you a lot of protection. Against something like a Zed, though, presumably he can use a Shuriken to hit it. It does add one extra layer of, annoyance. Now, this can help against engaged champs, too. So, like, if I try to go on someone like this, I engage on them, it's going to be really hard to blow them up fast, right? Everyone's going to have to, save a lot of their burst for that 1.5 seconds when this is done. So, it's almost like an aftershock kind of effect as well. So, I think that this could be good in some situations, but it is going to have less damage, overall, because it doesn't have like the Luden's proc damage or the Leandre's damage. So it's not going to have the wave clear. It's not going to have as much poke damage, but it is going to help you in all ends. So you probably will see it in some matchups. And the fact that when you're safeguarded, you can get up to 40 ability power is going to make it really good on some poke champions, right? Like your Zeraths, your Vel'Kozes, other stuff where people are going to have a hard time interacting with you. It could be useful. So I still think Luden's is probably going to be the go-to most of the time, but this could be good in some matchups for sure. It'll definitely see some play. Okay, Even Shroud, 200 health, 20 ability haste, 30/30 on the armor magic resist, Repentance. After immobilizing champions or being immobilized, it causes the target and all nearby enemies to repent, increasing the damage they take by 12% for 5 seconds. Okay, so this is basically like triggering a press the attack on multiple enemies. So, and it has the exact same stats, I believe, as Locket. So this will be very useful if you want to go for a skirmisher style and have less power in team fights, because you're going to be missing the Locket, but having just more like burst potential for tanks. This can be really good. So like on Leona, Nautilus, really just a lot of hard engaged tanks are probably going to want this. So maybe not the peeler tanks like your Braum, types of champions, but I think this might become the default, potentially, the default thing that you're going to get. Now, it does grant other legendary items extra 5 bonus armor and magic resist, so you get 10 resistances. So that's about the same as Locket, but it's selfish resistances. Locket gives 2 to everybody around you. This is giving 5 to you, which is good if you're going to be going in, soaking up all of those cooldowns. So overall, I think this is a really powerful item. I don't think tanks needed this. I think Locket was fine. Tanks are already, in a very dominant state in pro play for the most part, at least in terms of their representation. But this is good. Now, I got asked on stream, do I think that Rakan is going to get this item? And my answer is probably not, just because it doesn't have AP on him, or on it, and he has other good options as well. So, like, Rakan doesn't get Locket a lot either. This does add extra burst damage, so I don't know. In team fights, it could be good. You already have an item kind of like this with Mandate, and I don't know the exact math on this, but I feel like Mandate's going to do more upfront damage. If you think of the Mandate initial damage and then the proc damage from an ally hitting the person, it's probably going to be more than 12%. It depends on how tanky they are too, right? So if it's like a squishy champion that only has 2,000 health or whatever, you trigger Mandate, it does like 160 damage. I guess over the course of doing the damage all the way to do that 2,000 damage, 12% is going to add up to 240 damage, which might end up being more than Mandate. So I don't know. Maybe it is. I mean, the fact that it depends on the radius of the AoE. I suspect it's going to be pretty small, so maybe like 300 radius. So You're not going to be able to put that extra damage, almost certainly not on the ranged backline units. If it's like 700, then yeah, it's going to be really OP. But I think it's going to be very small range, so it's unlikely you're going to get a ton of targets with this. But you might get, 2 or 3 in a team fight. So, we'll see. I mean, maybe it's enough. I mean, Rakan being a little tankier could potentially be good. It depends on the cooldown on this, too. It doesn't say it has a cooldown, but I'm assuming it's probably at least like a 6-second cooldown. But then you could still have it up almost all the time. So we'll see. Now, Shirelius is obviously still going to be very good on Rakan as well, but I don't know. I'm kind of flipping my decision. I had thought he wasn't going to do it, that you would just do, if you wanted that, you would just do Mandate. But even on a 2,000 health target, like in the mid to late game, even single target, it's probably going to do more damage than Mandate. Or at least a similar amount of damage. So, I don't know. Yeah, definitely on Leona, Nautilus, I think this will be the default item. Maybe on Rakan. Okay, Frostfire. Now, I didn't notice much of a difference here. It's got 350 health, 25, 25, 20. Presumably, it's still going to cost 3,200 gold. And now this is saying attacks create a frost field that deals damage to all enemies in an area and they're slowed. So I don't think it currently does damage. So it depends on how much damage it is. If it's adding a lot of extra damage, maybe you see it. Yeah, I think that's the only difference, is it's adding the extra damage. It still has the immolate, but now you get the slow and the damage. And there were already some people taking Frostfire Gauntlet. It had a pretty good win rate, even though it didn't have a huge pick rate. So that's going to be a good change for, the certain champions that want that. Turbo Chem Tank, same stats as Frostfire. Now, this one's currently cheaper than the other ones, I believe. It's still 2,800. Frostfire might be 2,800 as well. I'm not sure. But it still has the same supercharge. I think the exact same stats. But now you have refuel. So after moving so far, you basically get a Dead Man's Plate proc. So it doesn't have the slow on the auto attack, but it does extra auto attack damage when you move for 100 stacks. So you get to go in. Again, the theme is tanks get a little bit more damage, which is probably good. Tanks in general have been pretty weak for most of the season, except for like the first month, just because all the bruisers with lifesteal and true damage and all this other stuff just destroy them. And that's what the meta's been about pretty much all season. It's just who uses, Gore Drinker or Stride Breaker plus the shield Sterix better than anyone else. And that's not tanks. So, anyways, okay, Winter's Approach, 400 health, 500 mana. Okay, so good base stats there. A lot of gold worth of base stats. Then you get bonus health equal to 8% of your mana. So on a champ that gets this, you're probably going to get like 80 more health, most likely. Because it's total mana, not bonus mana. 8% of your total mana. So if you have 2,000 mana, you're getting... Or that's 160 health, actually. So this is really closer to like... Really being like 550 health and 500 mana, which is quite a lot of value. It's just rough math. That's probably close to like 1,800 or 2,000 gold value just in terms of the health and mana. And then the ability haste, that's probably like another 300 or 400. So you're probably getting like 2,200 or 2,300 gold worth of stats here. Strike a target with an ability or an attack, consume a charge to gain 3. Okay, so it's got the tier effect basically. And then once you fully stack it, then immobilizing or slowing for melee only, an enemy consumes 3% and grants you a shield for 3 seconds. Shield is increased by 80% if there are multiple enemies here. So basically, I'm assuming it's 3% of your max mana. I don't know if it's a bigger shield than that, and you can get 80% extra, so like maybe 4.5%. That'd be more than that. It'd be like 5.5%. So if you have 2,000 mana, again, this would be like 110 shield anytime you attack or slow. Now, I don't know if this, like, what the cooldown on this is either. If there's no cooldown, obviously that's going to be extremely strong because you just get, like, never-ending shields. But even if it's like a 4-second cooldown, it could be strong. So maybe you see this on champs that just want to, like, obviously a Moo comes to mind. Champs that want a lot of mana that are tanky. Maybe someone like Maokai. can't think of a ton of others offhand, but there are probably some other tanks that have kind of higher mana cost. Maybe Nautilus, would like something like this if you want to go for like a solo lane Nautilus or a jungle Nautilus. Maybe he likes something like this because he historically has had some serious mana management issues. So that might see some play. I think it'll be very niche. It doesn't have any bonus like damage anywhere. It's just kind of tankiness. Doesn't have any AD. Doesn't have any AP. So it's okay. Axiom Arc, 55 attack damage, 10 lethality, 25 ability haste. Then whenever you kill somebody, you refund 25% of the ultimate ability's cooldown. Now notice this is 25% flat. This is not ability haste. So this is if it stays the way that it's currently worded. And that is roughly double. It's not exact math, but that's the equivalent of about 50 ability haste being a 25% cooldown. And then you're getting another 75. So you're and that's every time you kill somebody. As presumably this doesn't have a cooldown on it. So if you kill 2 people, you refund 50% of your cooldown. So champs obviously that really want their ultimate up a lot, which is many assassins, Zed, Talon, things like that. Maybe you see this. It does not have any extra damage to get the kill though. And some of those other items already have quite a bit of ability haste on them, right? I think Duskblade has 20%. I can't remember. I think Ghostblade might have 15 or 20%. And especially if they keep, kind of bruiser builds viable, like Gore Drinker and Sterix and stuff like that. Those builds have been extremely strong on those champs. So we'll see. I don't think this is going to make a huge splash. Because, realistically, by the time you kill somebody, if you already have, 50 ability haste from items, by the time you kill them, and then... Because you're not going to get off 2 ultimates in most fights. Maybe to go for the pentakill if you've already killed 4 other people, sure. Or maybe if you kill 3 people, you get 1 more ultimate off. But in most team fights, you're already just going to get 1 ultimate. And then by the time you buy your items, run back out to the middle of the map. That's probably 20 or 30 seconds. And then you've got to find somebody, hunt them down, look for an opportunity. That's probably at least another 10 seconds. So, and a lot of these abilities are already on a really low cooldown late game for these assassins. So I'm just not sure you're going to get enough value out of that. I think that even just buying normal items that aren't this item, your ultimate's probably still going to be pretty close to being up by the time you're in a position to make another play, assuming that you're just running around chain killing people. So yeah, it's cool sounding, but just because of the nature of those kits, I think they'd rather just have more damage, have that proc damage from Duskblade, or even the movement speed from Ghostblade to, rotate and find opportunities. There's probably just going to be better options. Unless this is really cheap. If this is like 2,600 gold, maybe it's usable. But if it's like a 3,000 gold item, even 2,800, I'm not sure if it's going to get used. Okay, Shadow Flame, 80 ability power, 250 health. Okay, now this is another one that's going to come down to cost. I'm assuming it's 3,000 gold. But this is about 600 gold value or so. This is like 1,600 gold value or so. So you're probably looking at 2,200 or 2,300 gold value, and then you're paying 700 for effectively 10 to 20 pin. That's a pretty high price. I mean, historically, flat pin has been extremely strong, but the reason that flat pin was strong was because that original Oblivion Orb was very cost efficient before they reworked it. It was like 1,500 or 1,600 gold. And I think you got, 15 pin off of that, in addition to getting AP. It was like, what was it, like 30 AP, 15 pin? I can't remember exactly what it was. But it was a very efficient item, and you could get it very early in the game. Flat spell penetration is much, much stronger early in the game before people have a chance to get natural resistances from leveling. A lot of people are going to get, 3 magic resist, 2 or 3 magic resist per level, and they can buy, magic resist through Mercury Treads, or, a lot of kind of defensive or hybrid items are just going to have a little bit of magic resist on them anyways. So you really want to get that pin early to get the maximum value out of it. And the fact that there's no longer that intermediary piece that gives flat pin, unless they add that piece in, that there's not a 1,500 gold piece that, will give you the pin while building towards this item, I just think it might be a little late. right? Like, you already have Ludens, which gives flat pin, and I believe Ludens also gives pin on, as part of its mythic passive. So, you know, by the time you get Ludens, which is probably going to be a superior item for most people, just because it gives pin and does more damage. Now, it's only 6 pin instead of 10, but still, it gives 600 mana, which a lot of champions desperately need, and it gives that proc damage, and it gives wave clear, and it gives movement speed. So Ludens is just probably going to be better than this as a first item. So if you're getting this second item, it's already going to be, you know, 20, 25 minutes of the game before you can complete this. And so that flat pin's not going to be as useful. So on paper, it seems good. Yes, flat pin historically is extremely good. I just think this is going to come too late in the build to be that useful. And it's like, yeah, you get extra pin when someone has recently been affected by shield, so they're trying to make like a shield breaker type of item. But at the end of the day, it's still just 20 pin. You know, like, it's good, but I don't think it's good enough to justify buying this over some other options in a lot of circumstances. Now, this, however, Cosmic Drive, this thing is OP. There's no way this comes out in its current iteration. Like, I would be shocked if they don't nerf this. So it's got 60 ability power, 250 health, 30 ability haste. I'm assuming this is 300 gold. 5% movement speed. And after damaging an enemy with 3 separate attacks or spells, you gain 30% movement speed, which decays down to 15, and 40 ability power until leaving combat. Now, I guess the grammar here is maybe a little misleading now that I look at it again, because when it says and, does this mean that you keep the 15% movement speed and 40 ability power, both of those until leaving combat? Or does it mean you only get the 40 ability power until leaving combat? Either way, I think it means both, and that's extremely strong. Even if it didn't have the movement speed on it, even if it was just you get 40 ability power, 100 ability power with all those other stats is very, very good. But 15% basically permanent movement speed in a team fight is nuts. Even if that was just for like 1.5 seconds, right? Or 2 seconds, it would still be crazy. But just imagine like Cassiopeia going off with this, or Ryze, or Gwen, or, you know, just anybody just about who's AP that wants this. So I think this just going to be way, way too strong. They're going to have to nerf it. This is going to, it can't be until leaving combat. It has to be for some amount of time, like 3 seconds. Like, they probably need to just get rid of the ability power on it. Just maybe increase the flat ability power just to 70 or something like that. I mean, you could probably honestly just leave it at 60. But just get rid of this proc ability power and just limit this to, you know, something closer to like Ludens, right? Where you get a little bit of bonus movement speed for like 2 seconds or something on a reasonably short cooldown, on like an 8-second cooldown. Something like that. I think that would be a lot better to turn this into like a Ludens Light kind of effect. But, yeah, I don't know. That's just way, way too strong. Okay, Horizon Focus. So, yeah, everybody's going to buy that. It's going to be second item like every champion that's AP if they keep it the way that it is. Horizon Focus, 110 ability power. Okay, that's a lot. That's really high unconditional ability power. And 150 health, which is kind of whatever. It does not have any ability haste on it. Doesn't have any pen. But now also includes slows to trigger Horizon Focus. And I believe Horizon Focus is you deal 10% more damage. It might be 15%, but I think it's you deal 10% more damage. Currently, you have to hit them from over 700 range or stun them or CC them to trigger it. But now it will work with slows. So champions that consistently apply slows can get that damage buff, that 10% damage proc. So 110 ability power is, you know, probably pretty close to like 2,300 gold. And then you've got 150 health, probably close to 400 gold. So, you know, it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2,600 gold total. So you're paying 400 for the Horizon trigger, which is basically 10% extra damage. I think it lasts like 6 seconds. And currently, I don't believe it has a cooldown on it. So if you can keep slowing them before it refreshes, then you can keep that 10% buff going. So That is nice. And the 10% damage, it says, does trigger on the ability that procs the Horizon Focus unless they change that. And it says it does work with Rylai's. So, Rylai's is a pretty bad item right now on most champs, I think. But, this could bring back the Rylai's plus Horizon Focus. It used to be Leandri's, but now it'd be Horizon Focus would be the combo item. So, I think that will see some play. Yeah, it already sees some play in its current form, and this is, I think, a better version of it. Okay, Demonic Embrace, 60 ability power, 450 health. Okay, so that's like 1,200 ability power, or 1,200 gold worth of ability power, basically, and then 1,000 gold worth of the health, so-ish. So we'll just call it 2,200, 2,300 gold worth of value. So you have to ask yourself, is this passive? Because it's probably going to be a 3,000 gold item. Is this passive going to be worth 700 or 800 gold? That's a big ask, right? Remember Horizon Focus, you're only paying like 400 for that. Cosmic Drive, I think, we didn't do the math on that, but that's borderline free. What, that's 1,200 plus 600, that's 1,800. 30 ability haste is like 800 something. So what was that, 1,200? So that's like 26. It's basically free. I think this would be like 2,800, 2,900 gold or something like that. So that's like insanely cheap to pick up this OP passive. Horizon Focus is reasonable. 300 or 400 gold for this is a pretty good price. 800 gold for this. Let's see. So dealing ability damage, burns enemies for 2.5% magic damage every second for 4 seconds. That is okay. It's a low ability power. I think it currently has a little bit more, doesn't it? It doesn't have like 70 or 80. So it gives more survivability, which is cool. But this damage is also, I think, a bit lower than it currently is. I can't remember precisely, but that's pretty good. Then convert 2% of your bonus health into ability power. That's bonus health, not total health. So if you're a tank that's stacking a lot of ability, a lot of health, maybe a Maokai or something, even if you have like 2,000 bonus health, which is insane, you're probably not going to have that. I guess it'd be closer to like maybe 1,500, right? Then you're going to be getting like 30 ability power. Maybe you see this on Maokai. I don't think you're going to see the double burn anymore. I just don't think it's going to be cost efficient enough to run this. Like, just go Leandri's into Demonic on like Zyra or something. I just don't think you'll get enough value out of that anymore. So we'll see. Maybe like Amumu, might like this. So yeah, Amumu, Maokai, there might be a couple of tanks, but overall I think it's going to narrow the item significantly. Not as many champs are going to want it. Okay, Seraph's Embrace, 80 ability power, a lot of mana, has some health on it now. Okay, so a little more survivability. Gain ability haste equal to 1.3% bonus mana, not total mana. Okay, so this does not include your base mana. So if you have like 1,000 bonus mana, then you're going to get 13 ability haste. That's just such a weird number. Why not at least like 1.5 or something? Now this looks OP. Restore health equal to 40% of the mana that you spend up to, something like 70, mana per cast. Or 70 health per cast. Some, number maybe equivalent to that. Toggles can restore the same amount. So every 1 second, you'll heal it if it's something that's toggleable. So like a Mumu or Singed or something like that, it checks every 1 second instead of per cast. I mean, that's really like Cassiopeia. This would be extremely good on Cassiopeia, but it doesn't have, as far as I'm seeing right here, it does not have the awe bonus anymore, which I think is currently 3% of your like total mana as ability power. So if you have 2,000 total mana, which is not hard to do, right? If you have Ludens and then you go Seraphs, then that's going to give you like, I don't know, 1,400, 1,500, and then you get 500 from base mana easily. So getting to 2,000 on champions who would want this, especially like a Cassiopeia, should not be hard to do. So the bonus mana, I guess, that's going to give you something like 20 ability haste, 20, 25 ability haste. And then, like, with Cassiopeia's Fangs, you're restoring 70. In addition to her normal healing off her Fangs, you're probably healing for, 100, 150 per Fang. But you're losing the 60 ability power that you would currently get off the item. Now, I don't remember if the current item is 60 ability power base or 180. I feel like you used to, like, very comfortably get over 100 ability power with this when you get it fully charged. It used to be like 130, 140. And now, so you're trading 60 ability power for, and I think didn't it give something else too? I think it just gave you more mana with its current version, which kind of sucked. It used to give you the shield, of course. But that all bonus is what I'm worried about, where you used to get the 3% ability power. So it comes down to, is 60 ability power worth 250 health, 20 ability haste, and spell vamp equal to 60 or 70 per cast is what it's going to come down to. So the health's worth like 600 gold. The ability haste is probably worth like 600. It says like 1200 gold. That's about the equivalent of AP. I mean, 60 AP is worth about 1200, 1300 gold. So just like the straight gold equivalency between these two is similar, but of course on most, mages you would prefer the AP. So it is cost neutral, sort of. It's in the ballpark, I think. But it's going to do a lot less damage, but you're getting a lot more vamp. So it's giving you that defense. So I think on Cassiopeia, definitely you want this, just because you're able to spam your fangs like so fast, like per cast, that you're just going to heal so much, it's insane. And it just complements her kit really, really well. So I think Cassio, like, for sure would want that. I don't even think her AP ratios on the fangs were that good. It was just the fact that you could just lightning them out so fast. It's that base damage that you get by leveling her up on the fangs. That's the really big deal. So if you combine something like Seraph's Embrace with Cosmic Drive, it's just going to be nutty in terms of how fast you can go, how fast you can shoot out those fangs, and just how much you're going to be healing off of it. So definitely keep an eye on Cassiopeia with these. Rise might similarly want something like this. I don't remember the mana ratios on Rise, but I think he still likes to get a ton of mana. So this could be a good option for him as well. He does fire out spells pretty fast. Ability cast, not damage dealt. So I don't think this works with Azir soldiers. Because Azir soldiers count as spell hits for Liandry's, but I don't think it would count for this. Same thing with stuff like Zyra plants. I don't think would trigger it. So it'll be very, very niche. I think it's a lot less damage, but depending on how fast you can cast spells to get a lot of value out of the healing, I think that's what it'll come down to. So very, very strong on a handful of champions, but probably worse on a lot of other champs. Anything that's like long range, like burst, like an Orianna or something like that, is probably not going to like this as much. Okay, Force of Nature, 350 health, 70 magic resist, 5% movement speed. Okay, so pretty good stats overall. Then we have taking magic damage from champions grants these stacks, or if they immobilize you, it grants stacks. While you get to 6 stacks, you take 20% reduced damage and gain 10% movement speed. So super niche, anti-magic item. I mean, yeah, this is just something, as a tank, maybe you get against like a triple or quad AP comps, which are exceedingly rare. Usually people overload on AD if they overload at all. So it's going to be super, super niche, and I just don't think a lot of people are going to get it. And there are other options that are probably going to be better in a lot of scenarios. So I don't expect to see a lot of play on that front. Okay, Knight's Vow. Although this will probably discourage people from going any kind of like AP, ADC. But anyways, okay. So Knight's Vow, 400 health, 10 ability haste, 150% health regen. Okay, so those are the same stats. And then while your worthy ally is near, redirect 10% of the damage they take to you and heal for 8% of that damage. Okay, so they've brought the healing back. 8% of the damage that your person you're attached to deals, you get healed for that. So it's basically like Omnivamp for you based on their damage. So that's good. I like that. That brings a lot of extra kind of utility to it. And then when they have less than 30% health, then you start blocking 20% of the damage. Currently, I think it's 15%. So this is neutral. I think it'll still be good at helping with assassins. And in like longer fights where your ally's doing a lot of damage, it'll help you out as a tank on the front line as like a Leona or something, because now you're getting healed while your Vayne is doing a lot of damage, so that's helpful. So overall, I think that's good. They got rid of you get extra movement speed when you move towards an ally. I thought that was kind of weird, because a lot of tanks, a lot of these kinds of people want to protect somebody who's on the back line, but they want to be moving forward. So it was just kind of a weird stat. So I think that's slightly better. It'll still be situational, but I think that's a little bit better. Okay, Abyssal Mask, 40-30, so that's way less base resist than the other one. It does have ability haste on it, though. So nearby champions, it reduces their magic resist. For each cursed enemy, you gain 7 magic resist. Okay, so you don't have to CC people anymore. You just straight up, if you're near people, it reduces their resist. Obviously, this is going to depend. Like, this item could be bonkers. If this is like 20, if it reduces 20 resist, like the old Abyssal Scepter, this is probably pretty good. If it's like 2,700 gold, which is what it currently is, this better be damn good, though. Like, because these stats are a little underwhelming, right? Like 400 health, that's about 1,000 gold worth of stats. 18 magic resist is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 600 gold, 550 or 600, and then ability haste. Only having 10 ability haste is like 270 or so. So you're looking at what, like maybe 1,900 gold or so, 1,800 or 1,900 gold value, and then you're probably paying like, if this is still 2,700, you're probably paying 800 or 900 gold for this passive. So it better be really, really good. Like, if this is only 10, if it reduces by 10, I just don't think that's enough to make this item worthwhile. I think it needs to be at least 15 and possibly 20. If it's 20, I think it'll be quite good if you can get it early. Because remember, if it could be a percentage pin as well. But remember that, like, flat pin is a lot better earlier on in the game, and it's still going to be hard to rush this. It'll still be extremely situational if you want to rush this. But to me, it just seems a little underwhelming. You do gain 7 magic resist for each cursed enemy, so you could get up to 35 extra magic resist. We'll say on average, if you get, we'll just be generous and say 21, that's going to be an extra like 200 or 300 gold value. So I guess that's going to give your overall, cost basis like maybe 22,000 or 2,100 gold. So then maybe you're only paying 600 for this, for the reduction part of it. It's going to depend on how big the radius is too. Are we talking Frozen Heart radius? Like 700 range? That would be really good. But if this is just what it currently is, which I think is like 350 range, it's really unlikely you're going to get more than, 1 or 2 people in range in most comps. So right now it looks extremely situational. So much of it is going to depend on how much magic resist is reduced. I think it needs to be at least 15 to be viable. 20 would make it more intriguing. But I think there are just going to be better items most of the time. If it's 20 though, this might become a really, really good option as a second item, especially on support tanks. If the enemy but the enemy has to have some AP on their team for this magic resist to be valuable, like a good amount of AP threat, and then also your team needs to have a lot of AP threat in order to make the lowered resistances useful. So an AD is the most popular form of damage because, like I said before, Gore Drinker Sterix, all of that garbage has just been so good all season that so many comps are running triple or quad AD that magic resist really has been a fairly weak stat for the entire season. Okay, in a lot of situations. We have lethal tempo, gain attack speed for 6 seconds while striking at least one enemy champion with each attack. This stacks up to 6 times. Okay, so that's worded a little weird. But you gain a stack for 6 seconds. And when it's capped, you gain attack range, and you increase your attack speed cap to 3. So right now it's 2.5. So it does not take you up to 3. You don't get the maximum attack speed, but it increases the cap. And I don't remember how fast this makes your auto attacks, but it's pretty fast. It's like 100 attack speed. The fact that so we need to know more numbers on this. So we need to know, what is the range? I'm thinking like 25 or 50 is probably what it is. 50 would be pretty damn good. If it's like 100, that's nuts. But I'm assuming it's probably like 25. But 50 would be ambitious. This room's already okay. Like, it's already viable. It's very, very close to press the attack. It's just most people go press the attack just because it's kind of an early game meta. You know, someone like Vayne's probably going to go press the attack just so you have better trades in lane. But lethal tempo is still not horrible on someone like a Vayne, or definitely on like a Jinx, Kog'Maw, you know, things like that. It's already like pretty good in a lot of situations. It's like right there with its competitive runes. So this might push it over the edge. And it says it stacks, so that might mean that it just lasts permanently in a fight as long as you auto attack every 6 seconds. That again would be a huge buff, because right now you get the full duration after you attack somebody for after 1.5 seconds, but it only lasts for 6 seconds, and then it's on cooldown for the rest of the fight, basically. So this would make it ramp up slower, but it would last the entire fight once you do get it ramped. And you get all these extra bonuses. So that's really, really good. Especially, like, Jinx would love this because she's going to get the bonus from her passive. She's going to buy other attack speed items. You can accompany her with stuff like a Lulu, who might get Ardent Sensor. So there are a lot of different ways that you can get your attack speed buff. So getting that extra cap up to 3 could be very relevant on a lot of champs that would take lethal tempo. Okay, Glacial Augment. Immobilizing an enemy champion will cause 3 glacial rays to emanate from them towards you. So 3 rays spider out from them to you. And other nearby champions. So is that 3 total, or 3 per nearby champ? So basically it creates a spider web between this person and other champions. Are those allies or enemies? It doesn't say. Towards you and other nearby champions. So I'm assuming those 3 rays try to, each one goes to a different champion that's nearby. I don't know how it's prioritized. It's probably the closest champion. I don't know if it targets friendlies or enemies. It could target both. If it just targets enemies, or if it prioritizes enemies, that's even stronger, because it's going to slow them, presumably. Creating frozen zones for a few seconds that slow enemies by 40% and reduce their damage by 15% against your allies, not including yourself. That's pretty nuts. That it's a slow and it's a defensive tool. So if someone's trying to dive your ADC and, you know, you just CC them, right? If you're a Recon and you shield them and then W, while they stand there, they're going to do a lot less burst damage because they're going to be sitting on the field, and then it's going to be a lot easier for your ally to kite that out. So this actually seems extremely powerful on a lot of tanks. You'd give up Aftershock for this, but if it's a melee champ and they're having to stand on that and fight you, now it does not include yourself. It does say that there. So this would be bad for solo laners. This is basically just for supports, is what it looks like. But that could be pretty good. It also does not say there's a cooldown. So if you're just continually just like slamming immobilizations like a Leona all over the place on people, you know, it might just keep spreading all of these rays and then people just can't move. So against a lot of zone, like a bunch of melee comps, where they're just going to have to try to run at people, this could be extremely powerful. So this could be good. This could be situational. It would put you in the inspiration tree, which does have some pretty good stuff. You got biscuits, you have the cosmic insight. Now this would work really well with the accelerating velocity one also, so that or whatever it's called, where you get the 15% movement speed while moving towards slowed targets. That has some synergy there too. So I don't know, there's some pretty good things there. You got Hex Flash in that tree. Obviously with a lot of these champs you would not want the free boots, probably with tanks that would want this, but this doesn't say anything about melee either. So if... I'm trying to think of what would immobilize people. There will be some things that are good with this. It's not slows, but if you can immobilize people from a distance with like ranged champions as a support, this could be pretty good too. Okay, so damaging an enemy champion with an attack or an ability before they do so, so before they damage you, the grammar's pretty horrible there, grants 5 gold and first strike for 3 seconds, causing your next attacks or abilities to do 12% extra damage against champions, and granting... Wait, what? Granting 100%, 70% for range units of that damage dealt as gold. Why would they do this? Didn't they didn't like the thing that gave you the gold bags. I don't remember what that rune used to be. They gave you like potions and gold bags and stuff like that. That was a really cool rune. I liked it. It was just like Ezreal abused it and GP abused it too much, but for 3 seconds, causing your next attacks or abilities to do 12% extra damage. That already is really good. Is it the extra damage or the total damage? So if I were doing 100 damage and I get 12% extra, it's going to do 112. Do I get 12 gold or do I get 112 gold? Presumably it's just the 12 gold, but I don't know. Grammar's a little weird. What's the cooldown on that too? Is it just like 3 seconds? Where you haven't taken damage for 3 seconds? Or is it like, 20 seconds or something? If it's relatively short, if it's like 3 to 6 seconds, and you just haven't taken damage, and you can just open up on them for the 5 gold and the extra poke damage, that's going to be just probably way too strong on Ezreal. Maybe on... I think GP probably still wants Grasp, but like maybe something like GP, but definitely Ezreal, I think, is really going to, go to town on something like this. So... we'll see. It's just extremely narrow, and it's going to be like overpowered on, a handful of champions, and no one else is going to use it. So I think it's ultimately just pretty bad design. It's just like Ezreal's such a weird champ, you always have to just plan around it. But this is like super obvious. This would be an Ezreal type of rune. So it shouldn't really be slipping under their radar. So it's so similar, like I said, to the previous item that gave all that gold for just these light trades and made Ezreal, too good, in their opinion. Okay, Rift Scholar. We believe the Rift Scholar spawn is too impactful in deciding the outcome of the early game, so we're reducing its importance and resolving the encounter more quickly. A lot of junglers, I don't know how people are going to feel about this. I think a lot of high-end junglers are not going to like this change, because that is an expression of skill, is managing the Rift Scuttler. Measuring your lanes, understanding priority, when you can fight for it, when you should trade it for something else. I think it's an interesting objective. I think it's fine right now. Now that it's squishier, you or your enemy can defeat it more easily and back off sooner for safety. Okay. The first Rift Scuttler will now have 35% reduced health and grants 80% reduced XP. Really? Well, who the hell is going to want it? I mean, I guess after everything's done, it still does give you a buff. The movement speed buff and the little bit of vision in the river is nice, but that's a huge nerf to the XP. This is going to favor just hard farm junglers more, because now they don't have to worry about fighting over Scuttle, right? Like your Karthus jungle and stuff like that, which are like pretty far off meta right now, Master Yi. But I think a lot of people really don't like those champions, right? Like, I like a meta... where there's like Lee Sins and stuff like that, much more than, you know, Karthus, Yi, Udyr, you know, these like hard farm junglers. And I think that's what this is going to encourage. It's just like, well, if I don't have to worry about fighting somebody early on, you know, if I can just give up these scuttles and not lose anything and just instead just keep turbo farming the jungle, that's what I'm going to do. So I just think this is going to encourage a meta that's just less interactive and is more about scaling, especially with the changes to the catch-up mechanics. So I don't know. I guess if you can kill it faster at 35% reduced health, maybe you still pick it up. It looks like it still gives you the gold. You just fall, you know, a little bit behind on the XP. So I don't know. Maybe it's worth it. But I don't really agree with that. But at the same time, I can kind of see what they're talking about. Especially at lower elos, it's frustrating because people don't understand what lane priority is. And then it can be a major point of frustration where people just come in and try to fight for it and die and then spam ping their team for not helping them, even though they didn't have priority in their lane, all that stuff. But I think this balancing around kind of that lower elo is probably not a good idea. Because like I said, I think this encourages healthy interaction, healthy reward for coordination and macro in higher level play. It does kind of force people to play skirmisher stuff early, right? You know, to play the Lee Sin, to play the Xin Zhaos. But I think people would be playing a lot of that kind of stuff anyways early on. And I think, like I said, I prefer that meta like infinitely more than the Udyr Hecarim meta. And I think most pros do too. Or like a Karthus meta or something like that in pro. So anyways, that's going to be it. Sorry, this is a little bit of a longer video, longer than I wanted it to be, but there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I just wanted to kind of unpack and give you my first thoughts on this. I've been asked about it a lot on stream, obviously. People want to know my thoughts on it, so I just wanted to do a video. But anyways, that's going to be it. Stay tuned. As we learn more about this, as they keep updating, I'll do new videos about it, and I'm still going to do patch notes and tier lists for this patch. And I'll have some upcoming prof talks, too, like talking about the all chat restriction, which it looks like they are rescinding, they're getting rid of, which I always thought they would if you've watched the stream. But I'll talk about what they're going for there, you know, what is it with toxicity and what are some of the best potential solutions to that. I'll make that a separate video. It's like maybe hopefully 15 or 20 minutes long and release that over the next few days. But anyways, that's going to be it. Have a good day. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Come by, check me out on Twitch starting around midnight Eastern Standard Time most nights, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.